You're live.
So we'd like to call to order the Monday, May 9th Parks Board meeting. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from the April 4th, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I move to adopt the minutes from last month.
Do I have a second?
A second.
The next item on the agenda are our claims as presented to us from last month. Do I have a motion for the claims?
I'll make a motion.
I second.
And now on to our new business on the agenda, and we're going to do things with our new business a little bit different. We have 3 items of topic, so we'll go through and have that topic presented, and then we will have a question session specific to that topic. The first topic is Pearl Park with Bill Barnes.
Good afternoon. So I'm here, I'm with the Community Foundation, just down the street. And I'm here, I think, to shed possibly some light on Pearl Park and how it's managed, if you will, and a little bit of the players. So as you know, Pearl Park, as it's in your plan, is it's one of the city parks. But it has these buildings that are, it's almost like an orphanage for buildings that don't have a home anymore, and they were moved from the county. And you all may know this, but so there was an organization, a nonprofit organization formed in 2000 called the Jefferson County Preservation Council. This organization was to care for these buildings, these rather unique structures that are moved from places in the county that they were going to get torn down. So someone approached the owner and said, can we move that? Can we preserve this French bee house, which is extremely rare to exist in our country? So the city was kind enough to allow these folks to use this space. In 2009, one of the people very involved in the Preservation Council, a gentleman by the name of Louis Munier, established an endowment at the Community Foundation. An endowment is essentially a way for someone to fund what they care about forever. So he made a donation in memory of his wife, and we have this endowment that generates income every year that can be used to provide maintenance and care for these buildings that do need care on that space. The Preservation Council, though, is, I believe, down to 2 members in that nonprofit organization. They are not active. I tried to contact one of the board members today, and I could not, had to leave a message. But it's my understanding, and so this is merely my understanding, this isn't a fact, and my understanding is that they have not met as an organization in quite a few years, more than 6 or 7 years, and they are not active. So the Community Foundation, we're stewards of this money, thanks to this donor, and we're not going to release money to someone who's not actively needing. And so we have money available since the Preservation Council does not seem to be jumping in and doing anything right now. I want you all to know that if someone else were to want to steward those properties, then we have money available. We do have to go through a process to change the beneficiary of that from the Preservation Council to another entity. But just to give you a sense of the amount of money, this year alone, there's $5,700 generated from the endowment, thanks to market growth. But we have some money that's been built up over time that hasn't been dispersed. So right now we have $14,700 available, but that money is to be used, let me make sure I get my wording correct from the fund agreement, for maintaining the buildings and supporting functions at Pearl Park. So that money could not be given to the city for mowing or even to plant trees in that space. It is for that purpose set up by the donor. So I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover. I know that Pearl Park has come up, and Lisa Ferguson and I talked about it. There have been some folks on social media who have said, what's going on? It doesn't seem like anything's happening there. I did read the 5-year plan, and I know that that right now it's not on your immediate list to jump in and do anything with Pearl Park. I am aware of a couple folks in the community who are very into preservation of buildings like this, and they're actually parts of some the historic community and organizations. Their organizations have not said that we would love to be the stewards of those properties, but I think that if the Parks Department is interested, I would be happy to set up some sort of meeting to try to get parties and come up with a solution, because the current situation is not sustainable, because nothing is happening. So those buildings are going to deteriorate, and that's not going to work. That's not going to look good for anyone, really. So do you have any questions of
Are you saying that we, as a Parks Department, could ask for some of the funding as long as we can prove and show how we're going to use it to update the buildings, replace a window, put a fresh coat of paint, stuff like that?
You could ask for it, but because we made an agreement with this gentleman who's no longer alive, to change how we do that, we have to go to the Attorney General's office, and we don't have to physically go there, I'm sorry. We have to submit information stating why it's no longer really possible or practical for us to do it the way planned, and then they may ask questions or bless that. There is a process and procedure, but to get that ball rolling, this conversation is necessary, and some sort of plan B has to be determined in order for us to move forward. But at that point, so let's say that we did have a solution in the city, then we just need to know that, is the city going to have people there with that experience and do that work, or is it better to have an agreement with an entity in the community that is already working on preservation activities? So kind of like today, the way it could have continued, the Preservation Council, but for reasons I don't know, they've just ceased to really be active.
And would you have a couple of suggestions for us of groups that do preservation in our community that we could reach out to ask if they're interested in kind of overseeing that?
Yes, and I do, and because this is a public forum and they have not, consented, I'm not really at liberty, but there are folks that are genuinely they do have an agenda, and their agenda is just to save these buildings. So there's no underlying thing. They just would like to see these things preserved. So if the city wanted to, then the next step, I could organize a meeting with these parties just to have discussion. And clearly, with everything going on with the Parks Department that I see in the plan, I understand that there's not a lot of capacity to do things with the park, unless that we could bring a solution forward that would work for you all for the long-term care of these buildings, and the fence and the safety. Some of the safety matters with the creek and the way gravity works, and if someone got too close to the edge of that,
Right.
It could be bad. So anyway.
I would say we're very interested in setting up a meeting with someone that you would contact for us and to pursue that. That would be wonderful, because I think we could maintain the grass cutting and things like that, but we get a little overwhelmed with all the properties when we start talking about replacing things. So that would be a wonderful to work together. That would be, plus they would be passionate about the restoration, which would be a bonus for everyone.
Yes, and they are.
And they'd have knowledge,
Yes.
which, we're not experts in that at all.
Right, yeah, nor am I.
Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
coming today and
Very
for
welcome.
being willing to help us.
Sure. Any questions? Somebody just asked.
Thanks, Bill.
Does anyone else have a specific question related to Pearl Park only? All right, next topic on new business, Crystal Beach with Ed Curtin and Aaron Daly.
I'm just gonna start this off as we get into this presentation, just kind of a quick, brief overview. Crystal Beach was built during the Works Progress Administration in 1938. It's been an icon for the city of Madison for decades. The administration wanted to preserve the pool for future generations, and in 2020, the city hired a consultant to perform a swimming pool audit. During this audit, it was identified that the pool liner that was installed in 2006 needed to be replaced as it had come to the end of its useful life cycle. With the pool liner at the end of its useful life, the city worked with the Office of Community and Rural Affairs to expand the project scope to make much needed repairs to the pool deck, concession stand, fencing, and drainage. So here today to provide an update on this project, we have the city's Director of Planning, Preservation, and Design, Nicole Shaw.
Hello. So I'm going to start with an update, just give you kind of the background and some current construction pictures. But like Matt mentioned, we've been working on this project for quite some time. We started in 2017 when the city was designated a stellar community. At that time, the project was estimated at $1.5 million. That included just the items that Matt mentioned. It did not include the pool itself. So we worked on project plans for the pool house between 18, 19, and 20. We decided to add, based on that swimming pool audit, the pool and the pool deck to the project. So when we awarded the construction contract in 2021, the cost was $2.6 million. So I'm just going to go over some before pictures just to refresh everyone's memory of what the pool house looked like. So we started with a pool house that needed some paint. You can see at the top gable and some tuck pointing, some broken windows and frames that needed painted, a second floor deck that was unsafe and railing that was missing, an unaccessible second floor exits from the locker rooms, or first floor, not second floor. Locker rooms that were not the most friendly thing to sit in, amenities that were old or from other park facilities, exits that weren't accessible or real tight spaces, and some structural issues that even most people didn't know about because a lot of it was in the basement. The second floor was a space that was only used for storage. I don't think anyone had been up there except for the community band maybe 10, 15 years ago. And it was unkept itself, but it had just storage and falling ceiling tiles. So we started construction. We did a groundbreaking in the end of 2021. And we started with demo. These are all the rusted and missing pipes from the pool house. And we've replaced it with new plumbing. So all new plumbing that matches current code. They've even gotten to the point that they've started to paint the interior of the first floor. The entrance area has been renovated to allow easy access for staff as well as occupants going into the pool. So when the pool opens, you'll pay at that window, and then you'll go into the locker rooms and out to the pool from the locker rooms. The second floor was cleaned up, then demoed, and now they're actually done steps even since I took this, but they're working on paint in that second floor, so it's going to be just a big, great open space for events. It's got new restrooms and a catering kitchen. All the windows that started out with missing glass have been restored. Missing glass was installed, and then we also updated the first floor glass so that all matches now. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but there were random pieces here and there, but they all match now with the glass that you can't see through. And then changes on the exterior. We're of course replacing that deck. It's all new wood. It's going to have easy to maintain composite decking, and then the elevator shaft, which will provide ADA accessibility to the second floor, is going to have stone that matches pretty close to the original stone on the building. So I'm going to pause here and just get a couple of questions about the pool house construction as this point, and then we'll go over the pool itself. Okay.
If I can maybe add
Sure.
one thing. One of the
This is Ed Curtin with CWC. He's part of our engineering team.
one of the things that we were charged with originally was to make that facility a year-round facility. So that's why we added the elevator, redid the second floor. If you, the slide that Nicole pointed out about the front entrance, that allows us to actually close that off to pool access and open the restroom so that that's open for any events and activities kind of throughout the year for the city. So the intent was to try and make, take a facility that was only used a couple of months out of the year and make that a 12-month facility. So.
I'm not sure why Ed sat down because he's going over the next
Get back
section.
up.
Ed's gonna go over the swimming pool, both the audit that Matt mentioned as well as a more recent structural report, and then we've got a bunch of photos for you. And then you just
I'll let you drive.
Okay. That works.
So when we added the doing the pool, we were challenged. We were optimistic, I'll put it that way, that we'd be able to take the liner off, replace it, and then we had anticipated that there would be some issues that we would need to deal with from the concrete and some patching, things like that. So we had included that as a unit price in part of the bid. Unfortunately, when we ultimately took the liner off and we were able to do all the testing that we needed to do, all of the piping failed in terms of being able to hold pressure. That helped explain the significant loss of water that you saw every year. And what we also found was that the retaining wall that is in that image right there is significantly compromised. So what Aaron and his team were able to kind of come up with was kind of, here's some different options that we can go through, but ultimately kind of the bottom line is that wall needs to be dealt with. We need to redo all the piping for the pool, add some additional piping to provide adequate turnover of the water for about a 4-hour rate so that we begin to approach meeting the code for the state. There's some concrete that'll need to be patched as well, and then basically replacing the entire gutter system around the entire pool, and then adding a surge tank in kind of an appropriate location to make all that work. What that kind of told us was that there's really not any opportunity to get the pool open this year. I mean, it isn't feasible to get there. But we believe that there's a path to get the pool to a point where I would say this is a patch, but it's probably a 15 or 20 year patch. We were given really 3 different options or levels of how to approach it. The top option was basically completely redoing everything, which was probably in the neighborhood of $5 or $6 million. We didn't feel like that was the appropriate approach at this point, so we looked at what's the best way to try and make this work. And from our perspective, the design team, we feel like the best approach is to continue to make this part of the existing contract. And part of that process is, we have an emergency because we got to try and deal with these issues. And then we can then provide the documents necessary to the contractor to get the price, which we think is in the neighborhood of about $1.8 million to do all the work that I kind of walked through. And then we can get them started on getting the pool redone in a way that makes that usable for all of you for the next 15 to 20 years. The other option is to say, okay, we're going to take the pool project out and we'll rebid it. My concern with that is that puts us in a real bind to even get it open for next year. Because if you got to get somebody on board to design it. Now you've got to get drawings done to a bid level stage, then we need to bid it, then you need to get it under contract, and by then you're looking at December, January to be able to start the work. So if we're able to kind of go down the path of declaring an emergency to deal with issues that we've uncovered when we took the liner off, I feel like we can be in a process to get started on this work in June or July. So that puts us significantly ahead of the process to get the thing complete. So I don't know if you want to run through any, or again.
We'll run through pictures, just kind of show really what we're dealing with on the pool itself. So this is a pool with most of the liner removed.
Go back to that one.
Yep.
So that image showed that concrete at the lowest level has disintegrated to almost completely gravel at this point. The integrity of the concrete kind of doesn't exist at this point. So we would look at replacing that and dealing with the drainage at that level as well.
So you can see damage along the perimeter. This is that structural wall that we knew had some deterioration. We didn't know to this extent without pulling the liner off.
And what we found is that there really are cracks from one end of the wall to the other, and that's, concrete and cracking go hand in hand. That just is the nature of the beast. The unfortunate thing is the depth of some of the cracks and what that has allowed to happen with the water getting in and deteriorating the structural steel creates the problem. And so from our perspective, that, we would say that wall has to be replaced. There's not really an easy option to deal with that, unfortunately.
And the picture on the right is that lowest level where you can see it's literally gravel. In the past, these images kind of show how the structural integrity of the pool was dealt with. They put just metal on the cracks to try to prevent them from expanding, which clearly has not worked.
And I think this might be the last one, but one of the other issues is that as a retaining wall, and in some cases it's 6 or 7 feet high. You want that retaining wall to be vertical. And now what started to happen is that top of the wall started to tilt out into the pool, which is not a good thing to have happen. So you can kind of see the starting to see some distance there from plumb to what the top of the wall is versus the bottom of the wall. So like I said, unfortunately, we just have a lot of issues that we need to address as part of this.
There is one more. Just shows more of that. So next steps, Ed's kind of gone over some of this, but we're planning to complete the pool house renovations and open by fall of 2020. It should be 2022. That's my typo. We're gonna work with the current design team and contractors to create plans to address the issues of the swimming pool. We're gonna complete the swimming pool renovations in order to open for the 2023 pool season.
So the company that's doing the pool house, they are subcontracting to do the pool also, is that correct?
That's correct.
And do they have experience in doing pool projects?
Yes.
They have an entire subcontracting team that's all they do is pools.
I guess I have a question. Well, we know the pool liner was at the end of its life and the pool wasn't holding water. I just don't understand why when it was being bid out and looked at, and nobody thought to pull back the liner to see what was going on underneath.
Because if we had done that and we found the extent of the problems with the wall, we would have said we can't open the pool, because it would have been too dangerous. And if we had run the testing on the piping, our fear was we'd blow out all the pipes, which meant we wouldn't have been able to open the pool. So the belief was it would be better to go ahead and have a pool season last year, knowing that we're gonna pull back the liner anyway, and we can run all our testing then and find out how bad it is.
Just a matter of sacrificing one season for another, pretty much. Is that what I'm gathering?
That's what it ends up being, yes.
I feel like we don't have a lot of options, honestly, you know, with as bad a shape as it's in. We can't take a chance on, you know, it not being safe or just, you know, bleeding water everywhere. So I feel like we really don't have a choice in this matter. I know we spoke earlier about, you know, holding them to a timeline.
Right.
Like, don't tell us it's gonna be ready for next year and then come back to us next February and say, oh, sorry. Like, you know, I would really appreciate if that is in the contract with dates and penalties and.
Right now there's financial penalty, and I think part of the process that we would need to go through would be to adjust that date, but still have that same financial penalty and hold their feet to the fire for that. Absolutely.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other questions for these two?
Hey, Joe, I'd like to say a couple things real quick. You guys can hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Well, as unpleasant as this is, we can look all around our park system and frankly any other major asset the city owns, and we've not set aside, you know, proper funds over, you know, the useful life of the asset in order to maintain it or make repairs or investments in it along the way. And here we have, you know, an 80-plus year structure that's mostly concrete that's been exposed to the elements all year round for a very, very long period of time, and we didn't know what we had until you take the liner off, and the liner was able to mask a lot of the structural integrity issues that we're now dealing with. I would say that the silver lining to all this is now we know what we know. We know that there's a regulatory element of this that we can work with over on. We know that there's a contractual element to it, which we need to talk with our contractor to figure out how we bifurcate the pool from the pool house. We know that we're still going to be able to deliver the pool house for year-round use later this summer. And we have time to put together a financial plan to pay for the capital improvements that are necessary now and make sure that we can get a pool open next season and the community can enjoy it for the next couple of decades. That's going to come with a sizable financial responsibility now, but also just a reminder that we need to be setting aside money every single year so that we can deal with a liner when the liner goes toward the end of its useful life. So we know what we know now. It's not pleasant. We worked really hard to keep the pool open for 2 extra seasons during COVID when a lot of community pools were closing. Matt's been in contact with the new manager at Clifty Fall State Park. It's my understanding, and he can comment on this too, that Clifty Fall State Park is going to be open this summer, so the community as a whole will still have an option for a swimming season. I don't really see any other choice but to solve this problem and work really diligently to ensure that we can be ready for the 2023 swimming season. And I'll turn it back to you.
Any questions?
Yeah, there's a question here.
Based on last meeting from Jan Pictures, I don't need to talk about marketing the pool. I'll keep working on that for another year. It's unfortunate we did close early last year so that we could get started. So we would make it for this year, so, but that's water under the bridge. I have two questions. One about the, pool house itself, the second floor, the, historic and wonderful wood floor doesn't look like it's still there. What's happened to it? Was it not restored?
It is still there, it's under debris right now,
Okay.
it's gonna be
Fully
refinished.
restored?
Yes.
So will we be able to go back to the roller rink? I'm just asking.
I'll leave the use up to the park board.
Okay, I mean, it used to be a roller rink and it used to be a dance floor, so I just wanted to make sure the wood floor got saved. The other question is, my passion is the pool and making sure that it's successful. In my reading, and I'm hoping the pool companies are looking at this, there are some new options to concrete. So hopefully they are looking at the new kinds of metals and some other materials that are not, they're new and better, evidently from what I've been reading. So hopefully we aren't just going with what we know because that's all we know, but we're really doing research on what's the best material in 2022 going forward. And then one other thing, I'm glad to hear the mayor mentioned Clifty Falls. Some of the water aerobics ladies asked if the city would please reach out and see if there's a possibility of scheduling something with the parks for water aerobics. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. On that kind of note, we have already reached out to Clifty Falls State Park, North Vernon, the YMCA and Vivi, Versailles State Park, and then Carrollton, Kentucky. All of them are anticipating opening around Memorial Day weekend, of which the YMCA and Vivi is looking to offer swim lessons. They said the class is full right now, but they are currently taking a waiting list. The Carrollton Pool is going to be offering swim lessons to be determined May 16th. Versailles State Park, they're going to make a decision in mid-June on swim lessons. And then for water aerobics, as of right now, those 5 facilities, the YMCA and Vivi, they offer 2 classes at 8 and 9 a.m., 8 a.m. and 10:15 a.m., Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and that comes included with your monthly fee after you pay that and your enrollment fee. But that is something that we can speak with these other facilities if they're able to find instructors and stuff that maybe these other facilities would be open to offering water aerobics. So, thanks, Jim.
And perhaps we could post that on our webpage.
Mm-hmm.
Alternatives for people because the pool will not be opening. So it's easy access for them to find a water aerobics class or swim lessons for their kids or whatever.
Yes. We will be, we'll be sure to include this with our press release of the other options that we have here in the surrounding areas moving forward. We still want families to enjoy the aquatic outdoors experience.
Okay, the third part of new business.
I have
Sorry.
a question
Yeah.
about the pool.
Sorry.
Julie Tabanov. Have you thought about having swim lessons at the junior high and using that pool?
That is not in our purview, but it's something that we could speak to the athletic director about, depending upon availability and how that would operate within the school corporation. But that would be a larger question to get the schools involved and see what their thoughts were.
The swim lessons are so important. We have huge bodies of water here, and my 5-year-old great nephew, I signed him up for swim lessons last year, and he just blossomed. He's probably a little overconfident. He'll be 6 next month, but he's probably a little overconfident. But I think I'd rather have him a little overconfident than absolutely scared to death. And another thing, and I was here in October and discussed how hard it was to get him to the morning swim lessons. And I know she'll be closing, it kind of throws a big wrench into that, but I just think that a lot more people would probably be able to sign their kids up if we had an evening, 5 or 6 o'clock option
And
for swim lessons.
that was our intention this year, is doing a morning and an evening session.
But I just think, Versailles is a long way to drive. Maybe it's a half hour, Scottsburg's a half hour, so, you add in, parents having to take off, work, and, if we're a low income or 1 paycheck family, I just don't see them being able to get their kid to the swim lessons.
third topic, senior meals and lifetime resources by the Girls and Boys Club.
Hi, I'm Erin Thompson, the Executive Director at Lifetime Resources. Thanks for having me this afternoon. I printed off sort of a frequently asked questions sort of document for you all, and if anybody would like a copy, I have more as well. But I just sort of wanted to first talk about what the program is that we have offered at the Senior Center for a number of years now, the issue that we're currently facing, and then talk about how we move forward from here. So first of all, what is a Senior Nutrition Activity Center, or a SNAC as we call it? And that is simply, Lifetime has branded its congregate meal programs as snacks. We just thought it was a nice term and fitting. And so when we say snacks, generally that just means a congregate meal site. And congregate meal sites are simply where meals are served in a group setting. And so our snacks offer an opportunity for older adults to gather for a hot meal, socialization, and activities. And a lot of times, it's that socialization piece and the activities that are a really key piece to the whole program as well. It's something that we've offered here in Madison at the Senior Center for many years. And when I say we, I mean Lifetime Resources. And so I think it's important to understand who Lifetime Resources is as well. So we are an area agency on aging, and we serve 5 counties in southeastern Indiana. So that's Jefferson, Switzerland, Ripley, Ohio, and Dearborn counties. And some of the services include nutrition services, as I'm here to talk to you about today. But it's not just congregate meals, it's also home delivered meals. We offer information and assistance, options counseling, case management for people who are on care plans that may include things like the home delivered meals, personal care, homemaking services, and a whole host of other services that help people maintain independent in their home when they might otherwise be facing nursing facility placement or something like that. We also offer health and wellness programs, caregiver support, housing, and transportation. So we actually are responsible for Catch a Ride, which you see in and around, which is actually available to anyone. So sometimes people don't even realize that it's associated with Lifetime, or sometimes if they understand that it is associated with it, sometimes they think it's only for older adults and medical appointments and things like that. It's actually available to anyone for any purpose, but I won't go off on Catch a Ride too much. I was previously the Catch a Ride director, so it's kind of my wheelhouse and I can't help myself. Anyway, so how many snacks are there? We actually have 6 snacks outside of Jefferson County, and we are working on 2 here in the county. One being at the Madison Senior Center, where it has always been, or has been for a number of years, and we're actually working with Hanover as well to see if we might be able to have an option there as well. So who pays for the meals? I think this is really important, and you'll start to understand why here in a moment. But the majority of the meal cost is actually federally funded. Specifically, that funding comes through Title III C1 of the Older Americans Act. This federal funding also requires 15% match, and we draw that match from a variety of sources. One is the state match, which is called Older Hoosier Match, Older Hoosier funding, sorry. And then also local government funding, so the city of Madison, Jefferson County, various other sources of match included as well. So that's why the city has an interest. For one, it's in the senior center building, but also the city is providing match for Lifetime for a variety of programs. Honestly, the money that goes towards the congregate meal site is very, very, very minimal because the congregate site only requires 15% match. Something like Catch a Ride, for example, is 100% match. It's a far larger, more expensive program in comparison to this. But you do have an interest in it, the city has an interest in it, et cetera. So, and then also participants are encouraged to make a donation towards each meal. And then, so prior to COVID, where we actually had to shut down for quite a while during COVID, that was a requirement from the state because they felt that older adults were those who were at the biggest risk, and we felt that pulling them together specifically for a congregate meal just was not safe. So what we did during COVID is we transitioned. We made sure that anybody who needs a meal continued to get one through home delivered meals. And obviously your senior center was also used as a COVID site here as well, so the facility wasn't even open for that purpose. But prior to COVID, the average donation from Madison participants was about $1.40 per meal. And we don't require a donation, we ask for a donation. We ask for a donation that is, whatever people are willing and able to donate. So who is eligible to receive a meal? As I said, this is a federal program and we have to follow federal regulations. And so it's any person who's 60 years of age or older. And then also individuals under 60 can qualify if they're the spouse of that 60 plus individual. Or if they're an individual with a disability that is a resident of senior housing where the snack is located, or an adult child with a disability who resides with someone 60 plus that attends the snack. But primarily it's for older adults and their relatives or those that they're caring for. I will say, and I took this directly from the Administration on Community Living, that the congregate nutrition services are not intended to reach every individual in the community. Rather, the program targets adults age 60 and older who are in the greatest social and economic need, with particular attention to older adults who are low income, minority, living in rural areas, having limited English proficiency, and or at risk of institutional care, such as nursing facility placement. So what kinds of meals are served? Prior to COVID, all of our snacks were being offered a hot meal, and typically those meals were being prepared by local nursing facilities. And the reason for that I'll get to here in just a moment. However, like as I mentioned, our snacks had to shut down during COVID, and since we've reopened, many of our previous providers just simply don't have the capacity to continue providing the meals. We talked, throughout the area to several different nursing facilities who were struggling to even get the meals to their own residents, much less take on extra meals for another program and meals that have to meet certain requirements and things like that as well. It's just too much for them at the moment. We have reached out to our previous provider here multiple times over the last almost year, and they're still not able to resume. So I will say, the majority of our snacks since reopening have had to transition to frozen meals. I will say we were kind of pleasantly surprised, and I think that participants were pleasantly surprised that they weren't as bad as they imagined that they would be. I think a lot of people were just happy to get back into that congregate setting, get the activities going, and just take what they can get. It took us a little longer though here in this area to get the snack reopened because it was used as a COVID site. And I think that the participants are particularly opposed to the frozen meals in this area. It's worth mentioning though that we do have a brand new frozen meal provider. This provider is being used across the state, and people are pretty happy with it. A frozen meal is a frozen meal, but we do, we try to take them out of the the frozen meal container and heat it all up and reserve it back on a plate so it doesn't feel as much like a frozen meal. Also, we would like to encourage the participants to at least try the meals, don't knock it till you try it sort of attitude, and at least just give them a chance. But all meals and menus have to be approved by a registered dietitian, and they have to meet very specific dietary guidelines in order to be funded through the Older Americans Act. So the guidelines include, they have to be a balanced meal, they have to include meats, vegetables, fruits, breads, etc. They are controlled portion sizes. The temperatures have to be correct. There's a lot of documentation that we have to be able to show that we served it to eligible participants, and show that we're meeting the program guidelines in order to get funded for the meals. So what is being done to so as I mentioned here, people aren't particularly open to the idea of the frozen meals. So we've been struggling with getting the meals back on the table. What have we done so far to find a hot meal provider? As I said, we've reached out to our previous provider, which was River Terrace, by the way, multiple times, but they don't currently have adequate staffing. We've reached out to other nursing facilities, we've reached out to the hospital. We've partnered with the Boys and Girls Club because they have a local presence here, and they also have an interest in doing some intragenerational programming and things like that. This program is actually designed for us to contract through a third party and just have oversight of the program, but we've struggled to find somebody willing to do that in the past, so we're actually really excited about that opportunity. but I feel like they've got a really, really tough job ahead of them right now because we just simply can't find a hot meal provider that can meet the dietary requirements. We've reached out to local restaurants, and again, they either haven't thus far been able to commit to being able to meet the dietary requirements, or they can't provide a reasonably priced meal for less than 10 people a day, which was our average attendance prior to COVID, and I don't know if it's comparable now. I think that sounds about right. So anyway, we've also been working with the Parks Department, City of Madison. You know, we've thrown around a lot of ideas. I know that the Parks Department attempted to do a survey of the participants over the last couple of weeks, and as of 1 or 2 days ago, we had one response, and it simply said, "We want good food." So we are still trying. I guess the question becomes, what will be offered at the Madison Senior Center until a hot meal provider can be found? I want to say, first and foremost, that if somebody is in need of a meal, we can absolutely get them a meal. They can have home delivered meals. You know, we can go down another avenue to try to find them resources for a meal. If they want that congregate meal funded by Lifetime Resources, it's going to have to meet the program guidelines. I understand that it would be much more appealing, I guess, for us to just be able to bring in Subway or Wendy's or something like that, but we simply can't. I cannot fund that. We can only, like I said, we can only fund meals that meet the program requirements. I think participants have been and may even prefer to bring in their own meals and sort of work out a schedule amongst themselves, who's going to pick it up and how they're going to arrange payment, things like that. And we're certainly open to other suggestions. But my worry is that, if the Parks Department comes in and says, oh, maybe we can fund meals for a short period of time or something like that until you find somebody. My worry is we've been looking for months and it just doesn't seem that there's an option out there. So unless you have some sustainable funding or something like that, I don't want you to get yourselves in a position where you start funding meals that create an expectation that I can never compete with. I'm not going to be able to fund a meal that is as appealing as anybody can just choose from. This program is specifically designed for people who need a meal and has specific program requirements. So I just wanted everybody to have a full understanding of why we're here, how we got here, what we've been doing, and that we're honestly trying and we're open to feedback. But you have to recognize that feedback has to be a suggestion that we can fund. So I'm happy to answer any questions, anything like that as well.
So your home delivery meals, I think most of us are familiar with Meals on Wheels. That program, is it similar?
That's the concept, yeah. We don't have a Meals on Wheels, that's a provider name. We don't
Right.
have a Meals on Wheels provider in this area, but it's the same concept.
So you have a group of people that are willing to drive to homes if we find someone who needs.
If Meals on Wheels would have specifically driven a hot meal to you, these would be frozen meals delivered, and you usually get like a week to 2 weeks supply at a time.
Okay.
There are multiple providers that you can choose from. You can choose from you can choose your choice of types of meals that you like. I would say that, like I mentioned earlier, we've gotten a new provider that we can try with these meals. I know that at the senior center a number of years ago they tried the frozen meals for whatever reason. I think our provider wasn't available for a while or something, and they tried the meals. They didn't like them, and so now they're sort of just absolutely refusing to try these new meals. And I'm trying to say, let's at least give them a try. Don't knock it till you try it. There's new providers across the state, across the U.S. Honestly, during COVID, people had to transition to either grab-and-go meals or frozen meals because they weren't allowed to be in the congregate setting. And so we've got meal providers popping up all over the place trying to do things that are, more culturally diverse meals and, do things that are more appealing because, they're taking advantage of this opportunity. If they're the only people out there that are able to get meals out to people to, kind of sustain this program in the meantime, that's why we've got these other providers popping up. So my hope is that they would be open to trying it. Thus far, we've not been that successful. And like I said, we're not going to stop looking for another provider. I kind of feel like what the seniors want at the senior center, they can decide if they want something funded. They're gonna have to, be open to what we can fund. If the city or the county values the idea of congregate meals and feels like there is a need out there that is still being unmet, we can look at other, we could look at doing something in a senior living facility, or find another group that meets, or, something like that. We can look at other locations. So it's just a matter of, on one hand, what do we do for the senior center, and then, what do you want outside of that in terms of still being able to offer this program for those who are willing and need it.
And you talked about, or you mentioned your health and wellness programs also through your organization.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with the Silver Sneakers program?
I am. That is not one of the programs that we offer, mainly because those are done by, well, they're usually done in the senior centers a lot themselves. We actually at the moment are offering Walk with Ease instead. All the health and wellness programs that we do have to be evidence-based, and this is something that was developed by the Arthritis Foundation, I think. And so it's a walking program. I think it's like a 6-week program where the individuals walk. One of the other evidence-based programs that we do is something called Healthy Ideas, which is a depression screening. We are also looking at potentially doing a falls risk program, which we have done in the past. Looking at trying to do that again. We are also looking at potentially doing chronic disease self-management and a few other things like that as well.
Would you happen to have any insight for us to how to obtain Silver Sneaker status? Because we pursued it with some of our facilities.
Okay.
And we would basically have had no feedback, so we would welcome any experience you've had with that.
Okay.
And then have you received any feedback from Mr. Hewitt on like what bottom line, what they want at the senior center is home cooked meals, is that correct? I mean, that's what all of us dream of, right?
Yeah, they want a hot meal. They, comparable to what they were getting from the nursing facility before, as I understand it.
Okay, so
or they just want to keep bringing in their own meals. That's kind of what I've heard most recently. We were trying to get actual survey results so that we could put some numbers in front of you, but like I said, they didn't really participate all that well. And I know they've had a couple of meetings sort of asking for input. I know that they just are very opposed to the frozen meals. They want something hot, or they just want to bring it in themselves.
I feel like, and I don't want to believe this because some of you guys could get somewhere, but like I went out to the Hanover Senior Center one day just to observe and to talk to people. And they had 50 people show up for their lunch. They had the Pride grocery store donate chicken, and then they had 2 ladies that made green beans, mashed potatoes, the side dishes. And they charged like $4. It was a great meal, home cooked meal for $4. So I wanted to ask you, like, if we could come up with just maybe 2 days a week and some volunteers, because apparently some ladies now are bringing in, they're cooking the food, bringing it in, buying it with their own money. If we could work with you to create some balanced meals, would you be able to buy the groceries for them to cook, the ladies who want to cook it there at our facility? So it's a home cooked meal, but it's also approved nutritionally by you?
Possibly. I wouldn't say no to that. We'd have to work out a lot of details.
Sure.
The meals have to be approved by a registered dietitian. I will say though that for some of our sites, we're so small in our area that we've never had a registered dietitian on staff. So we actually purchase menus from another area agency on aging in the state who has a registered dietitian, and we just sort of follow that to a T. I think the risk maybe in allowing volunteers and things to do that is, are they going to get the portion sizes correctly? Are they, that sort of stuff. It's making sure that you really are sort of crossing your T's and dotting your I's.
And I totally understand that, and I respect that. I just feel like, gosh, if they can get 50 people to come and eat at theirs, and if we could do the days where they don't provide it here in Madison and also have home cooked, if we go 2 days a week, they go 2 days a week, then we cover our seniors almost, 5 days out of 7 with nutritionally balanced home cooked food. So I just want to know if you were open to,
Yeah, I'm open to anything that we can make work.
Okay.
For me, we have to meet the program requirements. It's just not optional otherwise. But we are open to anything that we can come up with to make it work, certainly.
Okay, and my last question is, how do you foresee the boys club interaction, like, you know, how do you see that partnership? What does the boys club bring, what are they offering?
So that was something too, I was gonna interject of, if you
Sure.
could just elaborate a little bit more too, piggybacking off that.
Yeah,
On the
so-
subcontract and that partnership with Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah, so the Boys and Girls Club is essentially just responsible for doing everything that Lifetime has always done, making sure that, you know, trying to find the provider, making sure that they're ordering the meals and making sure the program requirements are met. You know, all new participants have to sign a new form. Every day there has to be temperature logs taken. They have to make sure that they get the meals approved by the registered dietitian, just making sure that all the program requirements are met. It's basically a subcontract from us to them, and we're just reimbursing them for the program. And that is actually the way the program is designed. We've actually had to apply for a waiver in all instances where we have not had someone to do a subcontract with. So it's actually the way that the program is designed. Because we cover 5 counties, I see it as advantageous to have a local organization here. You know, my office is in Dillsboro, as is my nutrition manager. And she would have been here today, but she's off on medical leave. But, you know, we felt that it would be advantageous to, for one, do what the program is, you know, how the program is designed to be run. But also, I just know that the Boys and Girls Club in general has an interest in looking to the future towards intergenerational programming and things like that. So they have an interest in, you know, gaining some ground with the older adult population as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Does anybody else have any questions on that? Come on.
If you wanna come to the podium here.
I know these two boys right here. I'm Gary Hewitt. I've been working with seniors over here at the Senior Center. When all this come up, I did not try to influence none of the ladies any way or another. I let them make up their own minds. They come up with suggestion. I worked for Lifetime for 5 years, and all of a sudden they terminated me when they connected with the Boys and Girls Club. And the Boys and Girls Club said they would hire me to take care of the meals. And when I come back down over the hill, then I called back up there, the ladies there, and I said I would accept it. Okay? But at the time, they was talking about the meals were being from Hanover College. And most of the ladies over there, they've been bringing their own meals in. And most of them, they was talking about maybe that might be okay. But when they come up with these frozen dinners, nobody over there wants the frozen dinners. They do not want them. They told these two gentlemen that the day that they come over there, they do not. And like I said, I didn't influence anybody one way or another, because it doesn't matter to me whether they have frozen dinners or a hamburger from Wendy's. I don't care. But I'm just speaking for them. They do not want the frozen dinners, and they will not accept them. I'll tell you that right now. I don't know what you can come up with. I have no clue. But they do not want the frozen dinners. They tried them before. The ones they had before. Brenda Thayer, who was my boss, they sent them. They come down. It was from Omaha, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And after so length of time, well, we had to give them away because of the date on them. So we had to give them away, and I told everybody that was coming in, and we had quite a few coming in, and gave them away to everyone who wanted them, and only about 2 of them liked them. They said, we don't want that. They threw them away. They didn't want them. So when these frozen dinners come in, they talk about frozen dinners. They do not. I'm just telling you, flat, they do not want frozen dinners. If you go over tomorrow or Thursday, they'll tell you the same thing. That's all I have to say about it.
Thanks, Gary.
I could.
Yeah.
We did order just recently some frozen meals, and had them taken down to the senior center. And
And they're
our-
still there, ma'am?
I understand that. And our intent was, we understand that Gary's an integral part of the senior center. He's been there for a long time. He's the trusted source with the seniors down there. Our intent was to, kind of call him and say, hey, these are coming down to you. We really want you to try to encourage them to have an attitude of don't knock it till you try it. And unfortunately, the phone call that he received was answered on speakerphone. They heard us saying that we were going to deliver the meals, and it was immediately, we don't want those, just an absolute shutdown, do not want them. So it didn't work out very well, obviously. I'm going to be taking those meals, if you all don't mind, and using them at some of our other sites, so they're not going to go to waste. We did terminate Gary after a couple of years of maintaining him throughout COVID. We luckily were able to, fund his position. We had some flexibility where we were able to, while the sites were closed, we had all of our we've just changed our title to coordinators, but he was called a snack director at the time. Making well calls, making sure that those individuals were, if they needed food, they were getting it, making sure that they were doing well during COVID, they weren't socially isolated, things like that, and we were able to fund those positions through something called individual socialization activities during that time when the snacks were closed. When the snacks started to open up, all of our other sites opened up and got going on the frozen meals pretty quickly. Like I said, they were accepting of them. When we started our relationship with the Boys and Girls Club, we had said to them, we highly recommend Gary. We think he's going to be an integral part of the whole situation, etc. But if they don't get meals in there, there's nothing to fund the program or his position with. So the problem is if we don't work out a solution, they're not open to the frozen meals, we don't have another option right now, there's no way to fund the position at all. So I just wanted to say that for what it's worth.
Next on the agenda, the deputy director report.
Wait.
Sorry.
Yeah, is it all right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Any
Yes.
more? Thank you. Hi, I'm Carol Marsh, and I'm with the Boys and Girls Club. I came in as Erin was speaking, and I don't know exactly what was said before I got here, so forgive me if I repeat anything that you guys have already been through. But something that I want to talk about real quick is when you guys came and we all talked to the group, the seniors, about what they wanted done as far as the meals went. We presented some options to them. One was that the country club could furnish some meals, but they would have to pay at least half price for those.
With the golf course, correct? With our
Oh,
grill.
I'm sorry, yeah.
No, you're fine.
And they felt like that would be too expensive. With Lifetime Resources, it's based on donation, really. I found a gentleman here in town who has a restaurant who felt like he could help us, but again, it's a restaurant and the cost was about the same as it was with you guys. So if they don't pay, then, it is what it is. So, excuse me, we gave a survey, and as I understand, only one person returned the survey, and the response was, we want good food. When we were there, I asked them, what do you guys want? Because this is their building, this is their stuff. And these little ladies, what I got from them was, we're kind of happy with what we're doing. And I understand that, I really do. I've been a nurse for almost 30 years, and I've worked geriatrics, and part of when you get older, because I don't want to tell you how old I'm going to be this year, but anyway, as you get older, there are things that you want to hang on to that you did as you were younger, and for those women, cooking is their love language. So that's a big deal to them, and I don't want to take that away from them. As far as Lifetime and us being able to serve meals, we can do that separate from that. I'm not worried about that. What I want to make sure is that they're getting what they want. And what I gathered, if you gentlemen felt the same way, was that they really liked what they were doing. The ladies were able to cook what they wanted, not what they were told that they had to have, and the portions they had to have, and their desserts that they like. I mean, all these things. So I just basically want to point out that they do have meals, but they're doing them themselves, and they're pretty happy about that. So, I mean, that's just where we are. And you know, the Boys and Girls Club, the kids love their seniors. You know, we teach them that there's so much to learn from these folks. So we want to make sure that we take care of them as we can. And maybe taking care of them is letting them have what they want, and they want what they got. So that's all I have. Okay. Thanks.
I just have a quick question too, and if for either one, Lifetime or Boys and Girls Club, if frozen meals were provided and that was the route that we wanted to go, would that then suffice in terms of fulfilling Gary's contract and such to where he would be paid? Is that my correct understanding?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And so if we do not provide frozen meals, then the city would have to pick up that bill. Would that be correct as well?
We
If-
either, assuming that's.
Assuming if we wanted to continue paying someone that was down there, because otherwise there would be no snack coordinator, snack director, correct?
Right, we either have to do the frozen meals, or we have to find a registered dietitian who is willing to sign off so that we can do what meets the nutrition requirements, and therein lies the problem.
And to find someone to be able to meet those requirements.
Just wanted to clarify, make sure we're all on the same page with that. And the only other question I had too, Carla, I know you spoke about being out at Hanover's senior center there, talking about the Fridays when they provide meals and such. You said there was 50, was that correct?
Yeah.
So of the 50, is that how many stayed before and after, or is that just how many were there for the meal?
Just for the meal.
Okay.
Like there were about 12 people that played cards before, but then the masses came for lunch. And they didn't stay long, they were just there to eat and visit a little bit, and then they were gone in less than an hour.
And how much did that cost per person?
$4.
$4. Okay.
I have a question too. Are the kitchen facilities good enough at the senior center for for groups to be able to come and cook like that, or is that going to take some work to get it up, you know, to a
I was
usable
gonna say all
level?
the facility itself can accommodate. It would just need proper clean, something
Okay.
that has been serving as
Right.
COVID center.
The only thing wrong over there is the dishwasher does not work.
Okay.
So just a little bit of
It hasn't worked since I've been
R&D.
there, and they told me that it didn't work 50 years before that. So,
Okay. Well, and it's worth mentioning that, you know, they're free to do that sort of thing on their own. I mean,
Right.
the program is designed for those who aren't getting a meal or can't afford a meal. I don't wanna force our involvement if there's no need.
Right.
I'll do my meals elsewhere. If
Yeah.
they like what they're doing, they enjoy that,
They
I-
really
you know,
do. They
and
really-
that's fine. We don't need to force ourselves in
I'm over
there.
with them 3 days a week,
Yeah.
and they really, do, they really
Yeah.
enjoy it. And when other seniors come in that doesn't do any cooking or anything, they are very glad to, they've been here right along with them, and they have no qualms about it all, but they really,
Yeah.
in fact, they plan out who's gonna bring what the next.
And honestly, there's value in that. That gives them some ownership in their senior center, organizing their events with their friends. That's what it's all about anyway, you know? And so I just don't want the perception to be that Lifetime isn't willing to provide meals anymore.
Sure.
That's certainly not the truth.
When the COVID hit, we lost a lot of people over there. Some of them are still alive, but they're older. We've got one lady will be 99 next month. She still drives, but we've got some that don't come anymore because of their age, and also they're not physically able to come. But since we've opened up in the last 3 months, we picked up a lot of new people coming in to participate on those days, and you'd be surprised that most of them anymore are new people that was down there that's been coming in before. Before, a lot of those aren't.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
is a few of them are.
and that's great, and that kind of goes to speak to the success of them doing what they want to do and
That's what they wanna do.
bringing in more friends and socializing more, and that's what it's all about. And for those that aren't able to come anymore, you know, we're always trying to educate people to do a referral to Lifetime, because if they need meals or they need in-home services, we can get those for them. You know, it doesn't have to be all attached to the snack, or, you know, we can make sure that all the needs are met.
My 96-plus-year-old mother is a regular at the senior center. She does not cook, but she's very happy to bring paper plates so that she can eat with the rest of them. I just want to say that Gary is wonderful, and the city needs to make sure that he is managing the senior center. And you could do a lot more information sharing so that everybody in town knows what's going on over there. There is no publicity about anything happening at the senior center. We now have the senior dances, which Gary also coordinates, being publicized, but nothing about ping pong and pool and cards and puzzles and sharing is, you guys don't tell anybody. It's a secret. So yes, you could have 50 people there if they knew about it. And then the other question I have for you and for Lifetime Resources is, who knows that meals are available to be delivered at home for vulnerable seniors? Nobody. Again, it's not publicized. And there are a lot of people that are still staying very close to home that are eligible for meals. Now, I used to deliver Meals on Wheels, and part of that is the daily interaction with people. And I understand all that's changed to 2 weeks of frozen meals, but there are still people that are food insecure that need to know that that service is available.
Yeah.
We're not doing a very good job at all. So please, 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 we need to do better. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions about Lifetime Resources?
Hey Joe, this is Bob. I have a quick question.
We're ready for it?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. What's the arrangement with the Boys Club with regards to personal involvement, I guess, at the senior center? Are our seniors expected to go up there, or is there staff coming down to our senior center? Can we get some description as to, you know, what a typical week would look like? I'm just trying to get a feel for, you know, if there's really going to be any on-site staff involvement at our senior center.
Hello, Bob. It's Kristen Snyder,
Hi.
the unit director at the club. And so our intention with this program has been to have the meals be a way to get our foot in the door, to be able to offer some more interaction with the seniors. We had talked about a body positive yoga class. We had talked about trying to help sponsor some of the dances and things, and just really have more involvement going forward. We had talked about some cooking classes. We even talked about some technology classes. So yes, we do have the intention to attempt to provide meals and then be there on staff to help offer some activities and things. What we had done previously was sent Carol, our education director, down to be able to meet with the seniors and kind of assess what their interests would be, so that we can offer things that they want rather than trying to force them to do things that they're not interested in and wasting their time.
Thanks, Kristen. Is that a weekly visit to the center, or is this really just right now about meals that might evolve into something later?
Ideally, it would be at least twice weekly visit to the center. We had looked at up to 3 days a week, but right now, staffing-wise, we are equipped to do 2 days.
Okay.
And is that contingent upon the meal program, or is that just you guys and your programming in general? Just for my knowledge.
For us at the club, for it to be sustainable, it would have to involve the meal program because it's a reimbursable program. So at the club, as I'm sure everyone else understands, we cannot provide activities that don't support themselves.
Chris, is Gary going to be at the club, or is he still going to have an office down at the senior center?
So the intention is that the seniors are certainly welcome at the club, but the senior center is their center, so we would be on site and Gary would be on site there. Our intention is to bring meals and activities to them with the understanding that should they want to use our facility for walking or things like that whenever there's inclement weather, that they're certainly welcome to.
Thanks, Kristen. I appreciate your feedback.
Thank you.
So now we'll move into the deputy director report.
Hello, board. First of all, I want to say thank you to our representatives from Lifetime Resources and the Boys and Girls Club and Gary Hewitt for all being here. I know we're all kind of in the same boat right now. Things can get difficult. So thank you guys for working all with us to try to, get to the same goal. Really appreciate that. So for youth programming, all of our youth leagues are either practicing or playing games now. We're operating 7 youth sport leagues right now. T-ball, rookie league softball and baseball, minor league softball and baseball, and major league softball and baseball. We've had over 280 kids sign up for our spring or summer leagues this year. So I think this will be a pretty exciting summer with a lot of action going on in our youth sports world. Adult programming, pickleball, and the exercise classes were running smoothly until the weather got nice, unfortunately. But we did just wrap up our adult basketball league last week. We had a successful 18 league, and Team Patton ended up winning the championship. Men's softball is scheduled to start May 23rd. There will be 5 teams in the league this year, and games will be brought back to John Paul Park. Registration for women's softball has not been open yet, but will be offered this summer. And this kind of goes back to what I said earlier. Due to our chiller being out at the Brown Gym, and sorry, I'm moving on to senior programming. Due to our chiller being out at the Brown Gym, we had to cancel last week's senior dance just because it was so hot inside, and didn't want our seniors to run into any health issues with that. Outside of that, we have bands scheduled throughout the majority of the summer for senior dances. Gary's done a great job putting all of that together, and then we've also had some volunteers that have cleaned out the Senior Citizen Center. There were offices over there that haven't been used in a while with kind of cluttered in there. But they've cleaned it out, and it looks very nice and clean over there. All of the offices do. And the Senior Center is still operating on a normal basis, and it seems that we are bringing in good crowds throughout the week. If you guys have any questions? Thank you, board.
Mr. Woolley?
Good afternoon, Park Board. Piggybacking off Chad there, thank you, all our representatives tonight. Bill Barnes, the Community Foundation, Nicole Shelf with the City of Madison, Ed Curtin is one of our pool consultants, Aaron Thomas with Lifetime Resources, Carol Marsh, Pearson Snyder for Boys and Girls Club, and then Gary Hewitt, who's kind of been our rockstar senior liaison. We appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to come here and speak with the park commissioners and for the public. And Jan brings up a great point of we're always striving to do better with our communications, with our marketing, our advertising. So that's something that no matter how much we do, you can never over communicate. So that's something that we're really trying to focus on and prioritize moving forward. So for me, board, something a little different than our typical written report. The big thing that's on my mind is the master plan. This was due, our 5-year master plan for 2022 through 2026 was due to DNR on April 15th with the help of Nicole shell. In the planning department, we were able to get that submitted on time, and now we are just in the waiting period of, it'll take them a few months to review all the different master plans that they have and get that back to us for approval. So the next step essentially from there would be presenting it to the board so that you guys can essentially sign off, approve, and adopt said document. This is about 134 pages that kind of goes over a little bit of everything for our Parks Department as a whole. And so how we essentially got there, the process for this, we underwent, a comprehensive data collection and analysis in conjunction with public surveys, public meetings, meetings that we had internally with our staff, current and former park commissioners such as yourselves, trying to receive various viewpoints and such. We're combine that information, with an inventory assessment, because as I bring up often, we have over 220 acres of parks, over 27 different parks, facilities, assets that we manage and maintain. So we did this with our demographic study, trends analysis, is how we were kind of able to determine our needs analysis moving forward with the plan. So the final step, as I said, the park board adopting this will then be providing funding sources, because the big question is, how do you pay for it? And so that's something that I'm actively working on with Economic Director Tony Steinhardt, Deputy Mayor McGee, on creating a capital improvement plan and providing the funding sources for that plan moving forward. And so that overall is going to kind of lead us to the recommendations, because we're starting with the big overall wish list of what we want to get done. Because as we've seen with the Crystal Beach presentation, and we say all the time, we get a lot of deferred maintenance throughout our parks and facilities. So what happens when you don't set aside capital funds to properly maintain things, and when it accrues after several decades. So that's kind of the overall process, and what that's led us to is, to me, the biggest takeaway from the entire master plan. If you got nothing else from the 130 something pages, it's just kind of the key recommendations, the goals and objectives of what we have moving forward, and that is facility investments. Mayor Courtney says all the time that he wants to reinvest into the community, into the neighborhood parks, and really enhance our quality of life. So facility investments include upgrading our neighborhood parks. So that's Oak Hill, Gaines, Playground for All Children, Lorenz, John Paul Park, JC Park, and then differentiating too between the neighborhood parks, but then there's also the community parks and outdoor recreation facilities. So things such as Crystal Beach, our city campground, Rucker Sports Complex, the skate park, the tennis courts, things like that that provide other means for recreation. And there's two different sides to it as well, and it's so we don't fall into this exact same pit that we are right now. It's maintenance is the other huge thing that we need to focus on with this master plan. Creating a routine maintenance schedule process, improving the overall accessibility. It's another common theme you saw there with Crystal Beach, especially that we've got structures that were built decades ago that maybe that wasn't on their entire focus. Landscaping and beautification plan for every applicable park. I know, Carla, you're always speaking to me about let's make it more beautiful. And then evaluating appropriate staffing levels across the department. Staffing is an issue for every single industry right now, and we're not immune to that being the city government. And so trying to maintain the appropriate levels, because we do have such a massive park system. And then the final component of all this, programming. So expanding program offerings across all of our platforms. That includes the youth, adult, and seniors. And then really focusing on recruitment and retention. It's something that Chad's done an excellent job of, and we need to start partner this with our marketing, with our advertising, figure out who is our target audience for each and every one of these programs. How do we expand that reach and draw in more than just Madison, more than just Jefferson County? Why did they sign up? How did they hear about it? Since I came here, we moved to where it's not just paper copies that you have to come into the city hall between 8 and 4. Now you can do it online. Now you can pay by credit card. Things like that to just make it easier to sign up. What did they like about the current program? What didn't they like? How can we improve? And just kind of utilizing all that, as well as what we can thankful for our different sponsors and our volunteers, because we could not hold these things without Chad. As he mentioned, over 280 participants for youth softball, baseball, t-ball. We could not have that without the help of our volunteers, of all the coaches, and everybody that takes time out of their day to help the youth for our community. So we're very thankful for that. So in conclusion, just kind of summarizing all this, here with the Madison Parks and Recreation, we're committed to providing an excellent standard of clean, safe, and beautiful parks and facilities for all citizens of our community, and also the hundreds of thousands of visitors that Madison receives each year. This kind of overall plan is designed to support those initiatives, focus on investing into our assets so that we may provide the best possible experience to those of all ages. By prioritizing these areas of proper planning, we will see an acceleration on the return of our investment, and the economic impact of the local economy cannot be understated. Our duty to this community is to preserve our amenities, and while doing so, deliver excellent service. And that this plan, we think, is going to put us in a favorable position moving forward to see these capital improvements through, preserve a legacy for current citizens to enjoy, and then future generations to appreciate. And I think Crystal Beach is kind of the epitome of all of that, what I just said, summarized up, that when you don't maintain it, when you don't properly care for it, you don't invest in it, that's what can happen. And so we've got a lot of broken pieces right now that we're trying to put back together. And so that's where the park commissioners, your help moving forward, the public, your patience and help moving forward is going to be huge for these next 5 years as we prioritize, we reinvest, we commit to improving the quality of life here. So that's the main thing that I wanted to bring up. This is, like I said, off to approval right now with DNR, and I will keep the public and park commissioners informed once that approval process comes back through, and then we can officially adopt that. But do you have any questions for me?
I know that you've been trying to work on hiring additional staff, maintenance guys. We're down to 3. Have you been successful?
Are you referring to just as the overall?
Yeah, the guys that work with Bobo.
Yeah, so right now we've got 2 that are going to come on to help Bobo, one high school, one college. We try to get him 1 to 2 people. Typically it's more younger kids to help him prepare for the fields and that kind of stuff, because it is very labor intensive. One of them, since he's college, will get a little bit quicker than the one that's in high school. But we'll be getting them, and then for the pro shop, for Sunrise Golf Course, we have 1 person who we just have moved from another company to come work for us as seasonal, and then we have 2 others that are going to do some part-time work as well there. And also kind of piggybacking off that too, we couldn't do all this without our facilities manager / street superintendent, Tony Sorrells, and his team of 20, 25 guys that they do a great job of helping allocate the resources to where we can help maintain all of this.
So those 2 guys you're referring to, they're seasonal help then?
Correct, yes. We're trying to invoke a more practical practice of hiring seasonally and not hiring for 12 months out of the year.
Okay.
So that's where our focus is. Thank you.
Now's the time if anyone has any public comment, come forward, say your name.
Hi, my name is Karen Ricketts, and I'm here to voice my concerns on the dog park. And a decision was made to open the dog park to the public, and in doing that, the ones that have gone there for years and have paid their dues faithfully, and the concern that we have are that people are coming in there, and who knows if their animals have had their vaccines. There's been reports, people that have been going there a long time say they have come early in the morning and there's people sleeping in there because it's left unlocked. There's people coming in and asking the people that frequent the park for money. It's just a big concern because we have a big investment in our pets. They're like our family. And when people come in there that nobody knows, that there's no shot records, sometimes I ask people that I've never seen before coming in there if their animals have their vaccines, because I don't go as much as I did because my concern for my animal, and if there's people I don't know there, I don't go there. So mainly I go when nobody's there, because then I'm guaranteed that my dog's not going to get attacked by another dog that doesn't have its vaccines. When I have called a couple of times and voiced my concerns, I was told that they had contacted dogs parks around and they were leaving theirs open. So I got on the internet and I looked at Columbus, Indianapolis, Louisville, and I had 10 out of 11 dog parks where all had a code that you had to get into. And they were charging between $30 and $50 a year. And the comments on the website were they were very, very thankful that they had a place to go, that there was a record of vaccines, and they felt safe bringing their dog there. These were comments on the internet. So the decision was made, and the people that frequent kind of felt like maybe there should have been some public input into that decision. So the decision could have been made by pet owners that have gone there for years and years, and they just don't feel, they feel uncomfortable with the situation, and mainly they just felt like public input should have been part of it when the decision was made. So I don't know why it wasn't. I know a lot of people are unhappy. I was down there one day and there were 5 other dog owners, and I asked them their opinion, and they were all very, very, very unhappy, and they said they had called and voiced their opinions, but they didn't feel like there was anything they could do. The decision had been made. So for my self-satisfaction and the way I feel, I just felt like I needed to come here and talk about it, because we are taxpayers, and that's the only park I use in the city. And the last 2 years, my taxes have gone up considerably. And plus, I always paid my dues, and I was very thankful that I had a place to take my dog where he could run, he could play. I knew the other people that came. I knew their dogs had been vaccinated. And not only that, but people that vaccinate their dogs always also give them worm medicine. All that's very expensive. A lot of people don't do that. And they come in there and their dogs, you know, they're not good about picking up after themselves. They just bring their dog in, let it run, then they walk out. So we that have been going there a while, we go around and pick up after the other dogs that have left, because we're used to being there, and we're just unhappy that the code system is not there. So now anybody can go in there, and we're not happy about it. So anyway, that's mine. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Brenda Holbrook, and I am also a dog owner here in town, and have been going to the dog park for years. And first off, I am so appreciative to have a dog park in the city, because I do live downtown with a very tiny yard that doesn't have fully enclosed space. And I have a very, very active dog. So it's a dog, I mean, we would be there 3, sometimes 4 times a day in the summertime when the weather and lighting allows. But I just want to kind of piggyback on what she was saying, in that the major point for me is the vaccination records, because as a young person having a dog, I couldn't always afford the amount of money that it costs to get all the vaccinations and all of the flea and tick and all of the worm and all of that. So I know that it is kind of a very costly situation, and in most cases, not everybody can pay for all of those things on a yearly basis. As a responsible pet owner, I want a safe place for my dog to go. There are things like hookworms that can get there from dog feces, and it actually gets into the soil and then can burrow into the paw pads of your dog. And those are something that you cannot get out of that soil unless you dig it out. If you have vaccinations and you're going routinely to the vet and getting wormers, those things aren't gonna happen. But if you get people that are coming in and are not getting those things routinely, then it puts all of our other dogs at risk. The same thing with things like canine influenza that can be transmitted from the dogs licking the water bowl, or sneezing in the same space as your dog. And not to mention things like parvo that are fatal. Canine influenza is fatal. I've known people who've had that happen to their dogs. So again, it's just disheartening to know that our dogs aren't being protected in that way. And just to jump on the fee, I understand, I completely appreciate the amount of money that it takes to keep the parks up and going. And I would have been very happy to have a higher gate fee. I would have paid a higher gate fee in order to ensure that the gate was there so that my dog would be safe. And that's on top of all of the vaccinations and flea and tick and worm and everything else that I have to provide for my dog. My dog is my child, and I feel like we have the right to know that our dogs are being protected when we take them into that public space. In terms of the gate, again, I know, just to reiterate, there are times where I have to be there either early in the morning or later in the evening because of my work schedule, and it was always nice to know that that gate locked behind me, just in the event that someone would be walking. I actually did have to call the police once or twice for people fighting. It's not a very well policed area in town. I won't start on the speed of the cars going by, but having that gate that locked, some of our dogs are very intelligent and can push those gates open, and having a gate that locked, and I know they've gone back and put, they tried a little plastic gate on the outside gate, and that got broken immediately, I think because no one knew how to use it. And they've put a chain now, which is great, so that helps. But just the ability for a dog to get out of that gate, I know there's been dogs that have been hit by cars down there because people are going a lot faster than they need to. But just having that lock on the gate made me feel safer. And then getting back to, I've worked non-for-profit for over 20 years now, and just talking about a gate fee, there's something about even the most minimal fee that gives you an idea of membership and belonging, and therefore ownership of the space. And what she was saying earlier about the fact that many of us who've been going there for years, we do have that little bit of ownership over the park and would help keep it cleaner, try to pick up, my dog brings her own ball because she's picky, but I go around and pick up all the tennis balls and all the toys because I know that the mowing crew is gonna have to come in and mow, and they don't have time to stop and pick all of that up. So we do have that little bit of ownership that comes along with having the membership or the fee or whatever it is. And I do think that helps, because I do see a lot more mess and trash and food waste being left, and again, that's something I don't want my dog to walk in and find a chicken bone laying on the concrete because someone brought their dinner in. That could be fatal to my dog as well. So it really, we really would have appreciated having input on that conversation, and we know that they had our emails because they emailed to tell us that they were giving us our money back. So just a quick survey maybe would have helped to allow us to have a voice in that. So, thank you.
Thank you for your honesty. Certainly we hear what you're saying. I'm a dog owner myself. I have 4 pugs, and I do all my vaccinations, everything. You know, we were thinking more about just being able to have that open to more people. Definitely will consider everything that you said. Please understand that we do hear you, and we will discuss it in the future.
Can I make another comment?
Sure.
I know people that frequent the dog park they're trying to figure out why the decision was made. So everybody out there has their own opinion. And they're saying that the people at the comes to the campground are wanting a place for their dog. People that come from Chautauqua were mad because the dog park is get in. Myself being a responsible pet owner, when I travel with my dog, wherever I'm going, I look and see what's required of me to take my dog places. If it requires paying $30 to use their dog park and I'm gonna be there a while, I'll pay that $30 to get into that park, because I know that when people pay to get in there, that it's gonna be, people are gonna look out for it, and those dogs in there are gonna have their vaccinations. And I know the locking system was a problem at our park, but we had asked and asked and asked and asked for a new lock to be put on there. We asked for maybe a solar one, and they kept saying it was too expensive, and we understood that. So some people did get in the park that weren't, but a lot of it was because that lock was broke. It would work part of the time and part of the time it wouldn't. So there were people coming in there. So when we left, I would always make sure it locked securely. So that was part of the problem, and maybe some people did give the code out. I never did, and I never ever let anybody in there without a code. And I think most of us didn't, but it may have been that few that helped make that decision to just leave it unlocked. But it was a big deal having a code, and it just gives you more security for your animal, that you have a lot of money invested. So thank you all.
Thank you for your passion about your dogs. I can assure you Chautauqua never even came up in our conversations. I don't ever remember Chautauqua even being brought up. And it was not based solely on the campground either. That was just mentioned as an added benefit, that those people would have access to it, but that was not based on our decision. It was more about just allowing more people to use the dog park. So I just want to put that.
People are just trying to figure out why the decision were made. That was just comments that were made. People are trying to figure it out. They can't understand why all of a sudden it's open. Yeah. I think we feel left out because public input. Maybe the decision would have been different had the public been able to voice.
Which, Ms. Riggets and Holbrook, thank you for your participation and your enthusiasm with this. We could have done something better, I think, as Ms. Holbrook said, of doing like a public survey to the current users of the dog park. We definitely could have taken that extra step. The only thing that we did do, we brought this up at 1 or 2 meetings prior to voting on it, so it would have been 3 meetings or so to where we had that discussion about it. But we could have done a survey, and as I brought up earlier, you can never over communicate, so there's more that we could have done. Our thought process behind this, which I believe we still hold true, it's to enhance the quality of life. That's what we are here to do, and we want that to be a facility and amenity that maybe not only 150 people use, but maybe some of the 300,000 visitors that we see each year. Not every one of those is going to be, taxpayers and such, but it's no different than our pool or our other parks and facilities. They're there for all to use. And so we felt that trying this kind of quality of life change was only going to enhance for everybody. And I can surely appreciate that some people may not feel safe having other dogs in there and such. I have 2 100-pound dogs, so I am always cautious when I bring my dogs down there because they're big boys, that some people may not feel safe with them, even though they are vaccinated, they're friendly. I still have, as a aware dog owner, it's something that I have to be cautious of. But we really, like I said, we saw this as a quality of life initiative, and it's something that we wanted to try out. But I do apologize that we didn't reach out individually to get surveys and get better feedback from about the 150 members that we had last year for that. And just kind of also another reason why we did this, per state statutes, the dog owners are supposed to have their dogs vaccinated and such, and so we're trying to leave this up to a little bit of the good faith of our community members, that if you take on the responsibility of the dog, that you'll take on the proper responsibilities of having them vaccinated. Just as if you're one of those dog owners that's going to go out of your way to take your dog to the dog park, we really hope that you're going to since we don't have an attendant down there like we do for Crystal Beach, like we do for the campground, like we do for the golf course, we can't regularly enforce that. And I can't tell you how many times on weekends I got calls because somebody got led into the dog park, and as you know, as avid dog park users, you had to punch in the code to get out. So I would get phone calls that people were stuck in there constantly. And I know that that wasn't just an anomaly, that happened frequently, that I would get told about, that people didn't have codes and they were still getting in there. And we were still liable at that point, even if someone were to get in there and then one of these instances were to happen as well. So this is something that we wanted to try, and I appreciate your patience with this, and we do hope that this has been a good experiment for the majority of people, but I appreciate you coming to voice your concerns.
Hi. As I said
Hey,
before,
Matt.
Yes.
Quick question. Yeah, I appreciate all of that. That concern that was expressed there too. Just there were several references to dogs being unvaccinated. Have we had reported incidents where dogs attacked or bit someone there?
I have received zero. Kim, have you received it? We have not received a single report.
Okay. All right. And we can certainly also speak with Chief Wallace about patrols down in that area, because I think there was a reference to maybe vagrants sleeping in the shelter house there. That shouldn't be happening. And definitely speeding the problem all across the community, and that's why we have invested in the extra traffic management resources with under Chief Wallace. We should also bring that up to him too.
Will do. Thank you, Mayor.
Julie Tavenant, I had a question about the master plan for the parks. Is that available on the city website to read all however many pages it is?
It's only 130. It's an easy read.
Yeah.
We are going to post that online. We are just waiting on the approval from DNR for that, so where it's the official document to where we can publish that.
Okay, and then it will be on the city website?
Yes.
And will you make some kind of announcement for that?
Yes, that's a big
I
deal.
will read it with most of it, so.
Yes.
The main reason I'm here tonight is, I actually only know Carla, so I don't know if the rest of you are, had grown up in Madison. My grandfather was Tommy Tavenant Jr. He was a Major League Baseball player in the 1920s and also was on the team that won a World Series. And I have brought, that's just a picture, and then there's a little bit there, and then that's a book that he was inducted in the Hall of Fame, and then that's just some stuff my dad graciously let me borrow. And I know it's been a long meeting, and so I'm going to try to just cut his history a little bit short. Thomas Joseph Tavenant was born in Madison on September 6, 1903. He went to high school in Madison. Then in 1921, he played on the Brophy team for the Brophy Belt Company, which I've never heard of. In 1922, he left Madison to play semi-pro ball at Centralia, Illinois. We'll skip that part because it's just too long. We'll just concentrate on the 1926 World Series. In 1926, Tommy played in the World Series against the powerful New York Yankees and the great Babe Ruth. Tommy was just 23 years old and had been playing shortstop for the Cardinals since 1923. It was the day of the second game of the series. The score was 2-2. Tommy came to bat. The ball headed over to Babe Ruth's right field. Nobody describes it better than Babe himself in his book, The Babe Ruth Story. There was another guy on the St. Louis team who was poison for us, and that was the little Cardinal shortstop, Tommy Tavenant. In the regular season's averages, he ranked the last of regular players on both clubs. But in the World Series, he came out top man with a batting average of .417. He even clipped a home run at the stadium, and that was a funny one. What happened was that it went into this, it was called a bloody angle, and Babe Ruth couldn't find it, and Babe Ruth says, "I've made quite a sight bawling, where's the blankety blank ball, at the top of my lungs, and no son of a gun out there would tell me. And then, this is the most decisive hit of the series, when Babe Ruth surprised everyone except Tommy by trying to steal second base. The series was tied 3 games to 3 games. With 2 out in the 9th, the Bambino walked. With his team down 1 run, he needed to be on second, so with no signal, Ruth set sail for Tommy. Ruth was much faster than one would expect, but catcher Bob O'Farrell whipped a low, whistling strike to second base. Tommy Tevenall took the ball, slapped it on Ruth's ankle, and was on his way back to St. Louis, a world champion, and the World Series star, along with Alexander. And then after the series, he came home to the city's admiration. He received a check for $6,200 for that World Series win, and we do have the World Series baseball ring. Anyway, it goes on. He played for a bunch of different teams, had a couple accidents, fractured his femur. He retired in 1938 with a career average of .247. He went on to coach a minor league baseball team in Ashland, Kentucky, came back to Madison in 1940, worked at the Charlestown ammunition plant during the World War II. He was an active instructor at the Kiwanis baseball schools, which was not held at Kiwanis Park, it was held at John Paul Park. He also played a lot of pickup games and things like that at John Paul Park at the ball field. He brought knowledge gained in the 15 years of baseball at the highest level. In those years, he played 1,229 games and had a lifetime batting average of .248. He later purchased the Star Food store, which for anybody that doesn't know is the Old Time Market now. People came from miles around to shop and stop with the famous shortstop. He died in 1957. And he came along at a time when heroes and role models in athletics were sought. He filled that role admirably, and what is even more remarkable is that he did it and kept his equilibrium and balance, never letting his success get the best of him. His legacy should serve as a role model for those who strive to succeed in baseball. So the reason I read you that is John Paul Park, not the park, but the ball field, doesn't have a name. It's just John Paul Park ball field. And, you know, my grandfather, there's been a couple other players in Madison that have gone on to the major leagues, but he made a career out of it. And he also was on a World Series team. So I didn't know what the process would be to maybe consider having the ball field changed to his name.
I'm not sure of the standard of procedures on
I
that,
don't either.
but yeah, that's definitely something that we can look into. I think with his rich history in the league and, you know, being from here, I think that would be an excellent opportunity to name that field. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up to us. Matt, maybe do you know kind of what the standard is on that?
It should just be in the ordinance would be my assumption on that, but I can get clarification. But thank you for giving us a little bit of background and history on that.
Yeah.
So I'd love to actually read that entire thing. Thank you for doing that. That's definitely something that we can discuss.
That is from the pamphlet that I have here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's just pictures and that's actually at John Paul Park.
Really?
Yeah. So.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing this with
You're
us.
welcome. Oh, you can't keep those.
Oh, I think.
Just don't remember my dad.
Do we have any more public comment?
Just a favor, the agendas are not published ahead of time, and so if you want people to come and participate and give feedback, you really need to have the agenda. It wasn't on the website an hour before I came down here, so no idea what was on the agenda, so it's kind of hard to be here. Other think that would really help. Thank you.
I agree.
Mayor Courtney, do you have any comments before we complete?
No, thank you.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
A second?
I second the motion.
Our next meeting will be Monday, June 6th at 5 p.m. Thank you everyone for coming and for coming.
Sorry, I didn't know you were cooking.